What is up, guys? Wrestling Premier is here. To say this was the most memorable draft would nearly be factual. Take out the 2002 edition and to toss up with 04, 08, and this one. I chose to make a video on the 2005 draft because it was interesting. Some reached heights like never before, while others shouldn't have even been in the draft in the first place. It was an idea one of you guys mentioned a few weeks ago which really stuck in my mind, so I decided today to do it. Now, this draft in particular was never done since. What do I mean by that? Over the course of 4 weeks, one marquee star was brought out to the world, and this happened on both Raw and Smackdown. It made whoever got drafted, regardless of their star power, feel like a big deal. Add to that, it brought fans to speculate just who might be the next draft pick. But with that said, on the May 16th, 2005 episode of Raw, Mr. McMahon announced that the draft will be held in June. It didn't matter if you were Michael Cole or John Cena, nobody is exempt. One wrestler in particular, unlike the rest, was actually hoping to get draft, that being Christian. For months, Captain Charisma had been bugging John Cena with no response in return, and in light of McMahon's announcement, Christian wanted that WWE title. Okay, fast forward to the June 6, 2005 episode of Raw. Eric Bischoff's damn near about to blow up after selecting Raw's first pick. He was hyping the hell out of this guy's first appearance in St. Louis. Bischoff even called this man the single biggest acquisition in Raw's history. Raw intro plays, Pyro goes off, and it was time for Chris Jericho's highlight reel with the guest being the draft pick. He rambled on about his Raw debut and how nobody can top it, and he called for the first pick to come out, but he didn't. Jericho's losing patience, but then we hear that familiar music, and Jericho's reaction is as if Fozzy landed #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The crowd was completely unglued. JR's like, what the hell? And Jerry Lawler couldn't believe the fact that the WWE champion was on Raw now. Truly a remarkable moment that is still talked about to this day. Cena ushered in a new era of Raw for good and for bad, and it's undeniably, well for me at least, a top 3 draft moment. Jericho just wanted to know how in the hell did this happen, and Cena's like, I got the phone call and now the champ is her. Y2J of course mentioned the fact that there was 2 titles before shoehorning his undisputed title accolade, and then he began giving Cena some musical advice when all of a sudden Christian comes out. It was very unbelievable to Captain Charisma that John Cena was on Raw, but quickly downplayed the whole thing, comparing him to Mark McGuire. He did a little rhyme which led to a John Cena rap where he referenced how Christian was in the Brood, how Gangrel was sucking blood and he was sucking something else. The crowd was eating it up. Jericho was playing cool host, and the champ showed fury and intensity with every sentence, essentially trying to kill Christian. It turned into a brawl which ended with John Cena and Jericho standing tall. Huge moment. You can't understate just how much changed because of John Cena getting drafted. The fans did start to turn on him, but his star power increased tenfold. Fast forward to Thursday night. Theodore Long felt sad about John Cena going to Raw because he's the damn world champion of the brand, but it was time to move forward. As he's looking to announce his new pick, JBL of all people interrupted, and he was smiling as if he was winning a world title or something. He made it seem like there was no chance the fans would know who's better between himself and John Cena, and he mentioned the lack of a title, talking about how deserving he is, blah blah blah. Basically, Bradshaw wanted to be named the champion of Smackdown. Oh, and speaking of that title, I'll get into it in a moment. Teddy Long knew that he's got to plan ahead and do something about the lack of the title, but that wouldn't be until the end of the month. Then he introduced the first pick for Smackdown in the draft lottery. He said that this man was a WrestleMania main eventer, a former World Heavyweight Champion. It was Chris Benoit. Fans go crazy. He's got a smile on his face. Benoit had already been a SmackDown wrestler a few years back, and his run on Thursday nights was the entire reason why he main evented WrestleMania 20. Add to that his veteran status. JBL's whining about how this is his show, while Benoit just laughed it off. Then Chris pushed to JBL's buns, calling him a quitter and questioning the thought of the quitter asking for a championship. Unlike JBL, he wants to win a title, not receive one. Bradshaw made a reference to both Benoit's title wins in New Japan and MSG, praised him for an illustrious career, but trashed his allegiance with ECW. Good promo from him. This of course led to a one-on-one main event between both men, which ended in a non-finish due to the whole ECW thing. So far, the draft was off to a great start. Next Monday only served to increase the memorability of this draft. First of all, during the night, Triple H was bugging Father Bischoff over this new draft pick, talking about how he's going to take up all my promo time or whatever. Add to that, it was interfering with his business, as Bischoff allowed the new draftee to say whatever they want about Batista. As for who that second-rate SmackDown jackoff ended up being, well, Triple H had to speak for a bit. He downplayed this wrestler, making him seem like any sort of schmuck. Then metal plays. JR's in shock, and the entire crowd chants in unison, "You suck." Awesome. Kurt Angle held himself to a level equal of that, hell above of Triple H, and it showed with this promo. Hell, Angle even wooed. This led to a woo-off between himself and Flair. Triple H of all people had to stop this before congratulating Kurt. Why? Because he's finally made it to the big leagues. Game was making it seem like Kurt was 2 levels below him, and the Olympic hero quickly reminded him of WrestleMania 21 in their matches. So Hunter bounces back, telling Angle that he was a champ at WrestleMania. While he was flying around the world, Angle was getting his ass beat by Booker T's wife. You'd think Angle was losing the battle, but then he admits that he liked that. Mentioned Stephanie. He was looking like Triple H was going to blow a gasket, but he admitted everybody made out with his wife, so it didn't matter. It was a very fun segment. Angle wanted to show he's the best, and the reason why he was even out here in the first place was to challenge Batista for the title. Champ ends up coming out along with HBK, and Raw ended in a brawl. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, the new draft pick didn't really make a statement verbally, but physically. During the JBL Undertaker match, Randy Orton randomly came out and RKO'd the Undertaker, costing him the match. Orton even managed to pose for about a quarter of a second, but one thing to know is that he was still on the injured reserve. Legend Killer grabbed the mic, announced that he's the draft pick, and SmackDown ends. Orton needed to continue the feud with The Undertaker, otherwise I don't know what they would have done with him on Raw. There was the Cena feud, but other than that, I don't think there was much for him. By the time Orton returned to Raw, he had gained some experience and had enough guys to feud with. Back to Raw. Eric Bischoff said that his show's 3 for 3 in draft picks, and he called for Shelton Benjamin to come out. Champ, though, knew where this was heading. Title match, of course, and kind of undermined the next draft pick. He was all smiles, but then when Carlito's music plays, he was in shock. Carlito's out there with a smile on his face like, were you expecting me? And they ended up having a quick title match. It was decent, but it concluded suddenly with Carlito cheating to win the belt, and poor Shelton never bounced back from this in my opinion. While he had a good push in 08, I just don't think he was as good as he was in 05. As for Carlito, it was a very memorable moment in his career. Add to that, a few seconds later, he did something else. He was being interviewed by Maria when all of a sudden he spat a damn apple in her face. And by the looks of it, he didn't want to do it, but that would break the terms of service of being cool, I guess. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, Teddy Long announced a matchup to determine the new SmackDown champion. JBL was getting annoying, asking Teddy repeatedly to make him the champion, and the GM eventually gave in to his request. Well, kind of. Sort of like someone clickbaiting you on YouTube. He's like, JBL's the new SmackDown champion next week if he beats 5 other men. All of a sudden, it's Muhammad Hassan. Big Show's looking like they asked him to turn heel again, and nobody was happy at the fact that he was now on SmackDown. Hassan had a chip on his shoulder knowingly, and the guys were really looking to kick him right out of the arena. He complained about being treated like a second-class citizen, felt that he was deserving of being named the new champion. The guys were so damn hostile over his statements. He then proceeded to criticize them one by one. Teddy Long refused to give in to his demands, calling SmackDown the land of opportunity, and instead, he was included in the match. What I find ironic about this situation is the fact that Hassan was getting bullied in the back, and 2 of those men in the ring also happen to be the biggest bullies of them all. Unfortunately, I ended up facing the Big Show a few minutes later. Fortunately, though, Big Show loses a lot, and this time was no different. Why in the hell did WWE give Matt Morgan a stuttering gimmick? And with Hassan, you can't tell me nothing. They were going to go all the way with him. It was really looking like it. Anyways, on Raw, 2 draft picks were introduced. This is in part due to it being the final week. The first of 2 picks was set to face Edge and Snitsky, and I should note that the partner of this man was Kane. As for who it ended up being, well, the whole situation was already intense. Even before the draft pick came out, Eric Bischoff appeared and booked Snitsky against him. He called him the biggest draft pick yet, so you know who it was. It was the Big Show. Snitsky looked like a jobber, but hey, it wasn't my fault. Later that night, Carlito hosted the Cabana, and his guest, the final Raw acquisition. He completely downplayed this draft pick, calling him a lemon. Add that to my list of insults. But despite this, the newest acquisition was no damn lemon. He was an OG. It was Rob Van Dam. Sure, he was recovering from his knee injury, but he was back on Raw. Carlito called him an injured lemon before mentioning ECW One Night Stand and how RVD was whining and complaining about how it was good in the old days or whatever. RVD responded to the lemon statement, calling him a fruit. He mentioned how Carlito got his ass smoked in the ring back in the Hammerstein Ballroom, and RVD refused to shut up. Then the IC champion's like, but the truth is, you're still injured, and Carlito likes it that way, and just kicks him in the knee. He continued taking advantage of that injured leg before spitting apple. And so that's Raw's draft picks. All that was left was SmackDown's. The first of the 2 final picks debuted during the 6-man elimination match for the SmackDown Championship, replacing the Big Show who moved to Raw. Teddy Long came out and mentioned the lack of Big Show, but announced that the 6th man was Christian. The way the commentary reacted, it was a big get. Captain Charisma was finally on SmackDown. He clearly didn't get the memo about what goes down on the show, though, and ended up getting his ass beat. Nonetheless, he put in a good performance, eliminating Booker T, and made it all the way to the end before getting clotheslined from hell by JBL to make him the SmackDown champion. Suddenly, Teddy Long comes out with the SmackDown title and announces that JBL is not the champion. Why? Well, there's no need for a SmackDown championship. JBL's #1 contender to this man, the world heavyweight champion Batista. Taz couldn't believe this at all. He had to see it for himself. Michael Cole was shouting. The crowd's cheering. They made him look like $1 billion, mentioning how he beat Triple H 3 times, including in a Hell in a Cell match. It was a very, very excellent moment in SmackDown's history, and it's one of the more memorable moments to come from the mid-2000s for sure. So that's the draft. The supplement one was held for the lower card guys. Raw got Rene Dupree, Kenzo Suzuki, and Hiroko. They got Danny Basham, Mark Jindrak, and Chavo Guerrero as well. And SmackDown, on the other hand, was given William Regal, Stevie Richards, Simon Dean, Candice Michelle, and Sylvain Grenier. About those draft picks, well, Suzuki, Jindrak, and Hiroko made 0 appearances because they were released a week later. Add to that, Danny Basham made 1, and this was during a Lumberjack match if I recall. Chavo Guerrero was renamed to Kerwin White. Stevie Richards lasted a few weeks before disappearing to OVW, I believe. Candice Michelle was brought back to Raw along with Tori Wilson in exchange for Stacy Keibler and Christy Hemme, I believe. And yeah, that's the draft. Overall, the impact made from the 05 draft was felt for years. John Cena became the cornerstone of Monday nights, capturing 14 more titles. Kurt Angle concluded his superb feud with Michaels, but ultimately left in favor of the World Heavyweight Championship in January of 2006. Carlito was seen as a rising star, but never broke through the glass ceiling. Big Show won tag titles with Kane and feuded with Triple H. Rob Van Dam, while he was out for 7 months, managed to return and quickly make his presence felt by winning Money in the Bank. And on Smackdown, Chris Benoit went on to become, in my eyes, the greatest United States champion. Randy Orton continued his feud with The Undertaker before bugging Rey Mysterio. Muhammad Hassan, let's not talk about that. Christian fell off, which was quite unfortunate because things were looking very good for him, and I believe he should have remained on Raw. And the final pick, Batista, he became the name and face of the Smackdown brand like John Cena. Now, before this video ends, I just want to ask you guys, who would you have preferred to have seen get drafted in 2005? I think it would have been cool to see Shelton Benjamin and Eddie Guerrero. Why? Because Guerrero on Raw would have seemed very fresh, and he could have feuded with the likes of John Cena and Shawn Michaels, and it would have been good. Nonetheless, the Rey Mysterio feud was one of his most memorable in his career, and I really enjoyed that Batista feud due to the fact that he's trying to befriend him, and Batista doesn't want him to leave him and whatever. I really loved that, but who knows how his Raw run would have went had it occurred. Shelton Benjamin, on the other hand, I think it would have prospered on SmackDown greatly because of the fact that the mid-card was wide open. He could have ran in there and feuded with Orlando Jordan, Chris Benoit, and Booker T. I think it would have benefited him greatly if he went to SmackDown then and there. So there it is. What do you guys think about the 2005 draft? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit an FU on the like button or perhaps a Batista bomb on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.